Yes, this is still Discourse Now. I'm Mark Small. This is December 13th, 2024. My guest, co-panelist, always here. It seems at the right time. Cassie Jackson, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for doing a recording later in the day. This is exciting.
This isn't later in the day. I mean, on the other side of the planet right now, it's about 5 a.m.
Isn't that
It's all
interesting? I
relative.
was confused. I thought it was a flat planet. Anyway, go ahead, Mark. Tell the news. What are we doing?
Okay.
What are we talking about?
The Indiana Supreme Court let stand a preliminary injunction that was issued by a trial court here in Marion County. It's where Indianapolis is located, that says that you cannot enforce the abortion ban in Indiana that was put through right after Dobson was handed down by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2022. Now, what that means is, okay, they stopped it, but how did they stop it, where, and when? They stopped it based upon the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. That's a statute that was handed down, that was passed by the Indiana General Assembly like in 2015. And it has a lot longer history than that, because the U.S. Supreme Court had held before that, years before that, that you could use religion as a defense in some things of general intent. So they didn't want that to happen, because that would mean anybody could cite religious reasons for doing whatever in criminal law, because that opened up stuff on drugs. So they said, well, you got to kind of do something where you can't bother religious practices. They brought this in. Religious Freedom Restoration Act says that it's a defense, but there are elements to it. Like you have to show. So let me explain Indiana's Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And it was brought basically because Mike Pence and a lot of the people who were really, really ultra, right-wing fundamentalists, they're called evangelicals now, but
Christian
they want to have something
nationalists,
that can stop women from being able to have safe access to abortions.
which is healthcare. Can I just cut in here really quickly and remind everyone that I was an abortion healthcare provider in Indiana, which was certainly my honor. And I also litigated against the state on behalf of my abortion patients for better access, and we won. It's one of the proudest things that I've ever done in my career, so I'm always going to say it. Go ahead.
Great. Well, on what they did on this, I'm trying to turn the volume up so I can hear.
Power on.
What they did on this was
Bluetooth connected.
Got it. What they didn't realize that was they were providing people with defenses for things that they'd never dreamt of. But we get back to.
Oh, do you mean like vaccines?
Huh?
I said, oh, do you mean like vaccines?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, we can go into that a different time. But on abortion.
Oh, I'm going into that tonight simply because I'm excited to talk to Micah Beckwith about being a religious provider, right? Who's writing thousands of religious exemptions for people to not get COVID vaccines, which is completely against what professionals were advising. And now, as it turns out, it looks like if someone like me were to have a woman come to me and want me as a medical provider to sign off on the fact that I understand that they're pregnant and I have them do a pregnancy test with me. Wow. It just seems like if I find the right kind of pastors, that they might be able to have an abortion. What do you say?
It depends upon what community, because as Ken Falk of the ACLU Indiana said, it's not real clear. They got class action status on the statute, or on the injunction.
I mean, I think most women will go ahead and be whatever religion they need to be.
No, but let me explain just a second. There are specific groups that can sue. They had a class certified for this. It was based upon the Pentateuch and Jewish religious law and practices, and it says basically you can't infringe upon their rights. Well, that's going to be litigated, but it also means our doctor is going to take a risk of getting sued or being arrested, especially since all of a sudden you have unequal treatment under the law.
It's healthcare, and all of the medical societies recognize it as healthcare. All of them in this country, including pediatrics.
You've had 50 years of something recognized as a right And
I'm just saying, like, when you literally asked the question, and I'm telling you, and that's my own personal opinion, but if there's a woman dying in front of me and most medical providers, and there is now this law, and we can be confident that that they have a pastor. I mean, Micah doesn't even have credentials. He's like working under some dude's credentials because he doesn't even have like a license to be a pastor. But I'm telling you, like, there's not going to be, despite all of the things you're saying about the law, many healthcare providers, in my opinion, who are going to watch that woman and be like, no, we can't help right now, knowing about this law. That's very exciting.
Yeah. And so it still has a ways to go in terms of litigation.
Sure.
But then you turn around and look at something like Beckwith is saying with vaccines. Okay. That is really
a health risk, a public health risk, and should not happen. That's the way the law. That's a good point. So what you're saying is this, which we have identified in this is that this is not necessarily a good law or thing that you should be able to do. Like I'm highlighting right now, I think it was egregious that Michael was able to utilize that to be able to safely or not get prosecuted for writing as a non-medical provider during a global pandemic thousands of excuses for people who certainly did not go to his church. I mean, they didn't. John's daughter like got one, like he was handing them out. And so that is a really foul way that it can be used. Now, what I'm saying is, as a clapback, it's coming back to bite them in the ass, because now with the abortion ban, what people will say is, how is that any different? How is it any different than the vaccine, right? Go ahead.
Well, because the vaccine was brought by people who were kind of crackpots and really didn't care.
Conspiracy theorists.
Sorry about that. Yeah. And so on that, I'm interested in how many people of those several thousand that Beckwith bragged about handing out excuses for got sick and died.
Or made some of their, comorbid already existing preconditions worse, or had family members who died because of that. I mean, there's no single way that someone in that group of people was not affected by COVID horribly, traumatically, and that he has blood on his hands for that.
Yeah. And this kind of establishes that when you're dealing with complex things of science and medicine in the 21st century, you don't throw your trust into some dumbass like Beckwith, who wants to advance a religious belief that nobody really has held for centuries, just so he can advance himself politically. Sorry, did I sound cynical on that?
He's so gross. He just he tries to embody this really gross, sick, twisted view on the Bible being this warrior text and Jesus being this fucking brute warrior. And it's just you are so ignorant and consciously so, apparently, because you can read the Bible, which it doesn't say that. I just can't even.
No. You don't have the right edition of the Bible. This is the one through-cut pickup driving Jesus with a gun and a gun rack.
You're right. Oh, okay. Okay. My bad. You're right. I forgot that version.
An interesting part on that in terms of the reefer case today, Jesus was Jewish if he existed. And he wasn't a Christian.
And he wasn't white. He was a brown man. So.
Yeah. And he had long hair.
Mm-hmm.
And probably had a beard. I don't know if he surfed.
It absolutely also came from a sperm and an egg. So that
too. I mean, we're talking about a lot of things. Okay. So that's
my dysregulation at this hour, but I appreciate you, Mark. Thank you so much.
No. It's been I gotta say the last several days have been really hectic. I've been blogging a lot, especially I'm on two fronts. I've got the national thing that I'm writing about, and then I've got all this stuff going with state. So people should watch, your podcasts and what you put online, and people should read and watch Civil Discourse Now, because we're both fighting at evil.
That's right. And Beck too on TikTok, And
she's going to be on there Tuesday.
She's going to be on Tuesday, which is so exciting. I can't wait for the three of us to be together. But she's at Beck. At Basic Rights Beck, and Beck is spelled BEC.
Gotcha.
Okay. Bye.
Good night. See you, everybody. Have peace.
Happy Friday.